Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into something that's way more common than you might think, but is often really misunderstood. We're talking about dissociation.
Seriously, think about it for a second. Have you ever been driving and then suddenly you kind of snap back to reality and realize you don't remember the last few miles at all? Or maybe you've had a moment where it felt like you were watching your own life from a distance, almost like it was a movie and you were just in the audience.
If that sounds even a little bit familiar, well, you've probably experienced what's called dissociation. That feeling of being an observer, like you're behind glass. That's the core of it. And you are so far from alone. It's an experience a lot of us have from time to time.
So what is actually going on in our brains during those moments? Let's get into it. In this first part, we're going to break down what dissociation is and, what it really feels like. Okay, so at its most basic, dissociation is a defense mechanism. It's your brain's clever way of hitting the pause button when things get too overwhelming, whether that's from stress or trauma. It's not a flaw or a weakness. It's actually a built-in survival tool that helps us endure something that feels unbearable.
So what does this look like in real life? Well, a dissociative episode can show up in a bunch of ways. It could be big gaps in your memory about certain things. It could be that feeling of being detached from your own body like you're a passenger. Sometimes the world itself can feel kind of unreal or foggy. You might even lose your sense of who you are for a bit. And some people even experience numbing to physical pain. It's all the mind's way of creating a buffer.
Now, here's the thing. While those brief moments of zoning out are pretty common, for some people, that feeling of disconnection isn't just a fleeting thing. It becomes a constant, distressing state that really gets in the way of their life. And that's when we enter the territory of dissociative disorders.
First up, there's dissociative amnesia. Now, this is way more than just being forgetful. We're talking about a major inability to remember important personal details, and it's almost always linked to a specific trauma. And in some really rare cases, this can lead to something called a dissociative fugue, where a person might travel somewhere totally unexpectedly and have no memory of the journey itself.
Then there's depersonalization/derealization disorder, also known as DPDR. This one has two parts. Depersonalization is that persistent feeling of being an outside observer to your own life, like you're a robot just going through the motions. And derealization is when the world around you feels unreal, dreamlike, or distorted. It's a really disorienting experience.
And finally, we have Dissociative Identity Disorder, or DID. This is what happens when a person has two or more distinct identity states. Sometimes people call them alters or parts, and these different states can take control of the person's behavior at different times. A major part of this is experiencing significant memory gaps between when different parts are out.
Now, you've probably heard the term multiple personality disorder, right? Well, that's actually an old, outdated term. And the switch to dissociative identity disorder is so important because it's just more accurate. It correctly frames the condition not as having multiple separate people living in one body, but as a single identity that has been fractured into different parts.
And it's worth knowing that there's still some debate among experts. While the official diagnosis talks about distinct identities, many researchers and therapists today believe it's more helpful to think of them as different parts of one whole person that never got the chance to integrate, usually because of severe ongoing trauma in childhood.
And that right there brings us to the absolute core of this whole topic, the deep, powerful link between trauma and dissociation. I mean, to really get why a mind would need to split like this, we've got to look at what's happening in the brain when it's faced with something totally overwhelming. So we all have this incredible survival system hardwired into our bodies. You've heard of fight or flight, I'm sure. But what happens when you can't fight and you can't run? Well, there's a third option, freeze. It's like a circuit breaker. And dissociation is basically the mental version of that freeze response. When the body can't physically get away, the mind checks out. It's pure survival.
This quote from Carolyn Spring, a writer and trauma survivor, just captures it so perfectly. The experience isn't just in your head. Trauma gets stored in the body, and it can feel so foreign and out of your control, almost like being possessed by aliens. That visceral feeling is exactly why the mind feels the need to disconnect.
So, all of that sounds pretty intense. But if disassociation is the mind's way of coping with trauma, how do people start to heal from it? Well, here's the really important part. Recovery is absolutely possible. So let's talk about what the path to treatment and healing actually looks like.
The journey to getting help usually starts with a few really practical steps. The first one is just talking to your family doctor. From there, because these conditions are pretty complex, the next step is usually getting a referral to a specialist, like a psychiatrist, who really knows this stuff and can make an accurate diagnosis. And then, the main road to healing begins with therapy. And there are a few really solid, effective therapies out there. Things like long-term psychotherapy can be amazing because it's all about building a safe, trusting relationship where trauma can finally be processed. Then there are therapies like CBT, which helps with changing harmful thought patterns, and EMDR, which is specifically designed to help the brain reprocess traumatic memories.
Okay, I have to pause here because this is incredibly important. A heads up. For someone with a dissociative disorder, standard, by-the-book EMDR can actually be harmful. So it is absolutely crucial that if you're looking into it, you have to confirm that the therapist is specially trained in a modified version of EMDR designed for dissociation and complex trauma. Please, please remember that.
All right, so beyond the therapist's office, there are also really practical things people can use in their day-to-day lives to help manage symptoms. These are tools that can empower you on your healing journey, helping you feel safer and more in control, especially in the moment.
We call these grounding techniques, and they're fantastic. They're all about pulling you back into the present moment when you feel yourself starting to drift away. A great one is to engage your senses, like find 3 things you can see, 3 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch. Simple things like just describing your surroundings out loud, holding a familiar object, or even just standing up and feeling your feet on the floor can work wonders to reconnect you to the here and now.
And that's really the whole point of grounding. It's about finding an anchor in the present moment, something real and solid to hold on to when your mind feels like it's floating away. It creates that sense of stability right when you need it the most.
I just love this quote. It completely reframes what healing is all about. It's not some far-off magical dream. It's an active, intentional process. It's about making a plan, using your tools, and taking it one step at a time. It basically turns hope into a strategy.
So if you take anything away from all of this, let it be a message of hope. Understanding what dissociation is, this complex but very human response to overwhelming events, is the very first step. And the most important thing to know is that with the right help and the right tools, healing isn't just a possibility. It happens. You are not alone.